Hello there, LinkedIn family. Jonathan here from Some Talented People. So today's video is about something which will boost your creativity, your success, your accuracy, and improve the rate of results that you achieve. And that is the happiness advantage. Now, what I've done is I've clipped a bit out of the guy's TED Talk. His name is Shawn Achor, Shawn S-H-A-W-N, Achor, A-C-H-O-R. I very much recommend you buy the book. But the headline fact is this: we live in a world where we have been persuaded that if we work hard and achieve our goals, then we'll be happy. And the trouble with that ideology is that it means your happiness is always beyond the next goal. So you never really get there, and quite often is the case that people that amass wealth and success and fame are some of the unhappiest people that exist, because they know they should be happy. They have all the things that basically happy people have. Isn't that right? Well, this guy Shawn, I don't think I'll get time to put it in this video, but he explains that if he knows 90% of all of your external conditions, he can only know 10% of what makes you happy in the long term. The external world is not what does it. The research from, I think it's 3,000, I hadn't read the book for a while, but it's about 3,000 research studies into happiness from around the world. And basically the findings are this, that if you make yourself happy, so the approach I take is literally to laugh heavily at least 2 or 3 times a day, because it makes me happy and it makes me notice things that are happiness inducing. So, you know, a child smiling, a baby laughing, simple things that are accessible. So you could Google baby laughing and get loads of videos, and honestly it's just a glorious sound. And what happens is that when you laugh before you start a task, you are getting a dopamine release, which is both pleasurable and motivational, so that you start to associate a happy state with the work you're going to do, which means that the idea, oh God, I've got to do this, and oh, I've got to finish this, and oh, when I get that, then I'll be able to rest. All of those conversations that we have internally make your brain neutral at best, negative at worst. And a brain in those states does not work effectively. He also goes on to say that dopamine flows through the hippocampus, and the hippocampus is your short-term memory that you gauge through the day, and then overnight it shifted, your new memories from the day are shifted to your cortex of your brain, which is your long-term storage, and dopamine helps that to happen. So the approach I take is this: I listen to Radio 4 comedy every night before I go to, or as I'm going to sleep, and I have done now for 24 years. I also record a Radio 4 comedy the morning when I wake up. So both as the last thing I do and the first thing I do, I make myself laugh, and as a result, well, I have a happier experience irrespective of the external circumstances. So here's his bit of a talk. Enjoy yourself, have a nice day, and I will speak to you again. Thanks a lot.
But normal is merely average. And what I posit, and what positive psychology posits, is that if we study what is merely average, we will remain merely average. Then instead of deleting those positive outliers, what I intentionally do is come into a population like this one and says, why? Why is it that some of you are so high above the curve in terms of your intellectual ability, athletic ability, musical ability, creativity, energy levels, your resiliency in the face of challenge, your sense of humor? Whatever it is, instead of deleting you, what I want to do is study you. Because maybe we can glean information, not just how to move people up to the average, but how we can move the entire average up at our companies and schools worldwide. The reason this graph is important to me is when I turn on the news, it seems like the majority of the information is not positive. In fact, it's negative. Most of it's about murder, corruption, diseases, natural disasters, and very quickly, my brain starts to think that's the accurate ratio of negative to positive in the world. What that's doing is creating something called the medical school syndrome, which, if you know people who have been to medical school during the first year of medical training, as you read through a list of all the symptoms and diseases that could happen, suddenly you realize you have all of them. See, what we're finding is it's not necessarily the reality that shapes us, but the lens through which your brain views the world that shapes your reality. And if we can change the lens, not only can we change your happiness, we can change every single educational and business outcome at the same time. When I applied to Harvard, I applied on a dare. I didn't expect to get in, and my family had no money for college. When I got a military scholarship 2 weeks later, they allowed me to go. Suddenly, something that wasn't even a possibility became a reality. When I went there, I assumed everyone else would see it as a privilege as well, that they'd be excited to be there. Even if you're in a classroom full of people smarter than you, you'd be happy just to be in that classroom, which is what I felt. But what I found there is while some people experienced that, when I graduated after my 4 years and then spent the next 8 years living in the dorms with the students, Harvard asked me to. Wasn't that guy. But what happened, I was an officer of Harvard to counsel students through the difficult 4 years, and what I found in my research and my teaching is that these students, no matter how happy they were with their original success of getting into the school, 2 weeks later their brains were focused not on the privilege of being there, nor on their philosophy or their physics. Their brain was focused on the competition, the workload, the hassles, the stresses, the complaints. When I first went in there, I walked into the freshman dining hall, which is where my friends from Waco, Texas, which is where I grew up, I know some of you have heard of it. When they come to visit me, they look around, they say, this freshman dining hall looks like something out of Hogwarts from the movie Harry Potter, which it does. This is Hogwarts from the movie Harry Potter, and that's Harvard. And when they see this, they say, Sean, why do you waste your time studying happiness at Harvard? Seriously, what does a Harvard student possibly have to be unhappy about? Embedded within that question is the key to understanding the science of happiness. Because what that question assumes is that our external world is predictive of our happiness levels. When in reality, if I know everything about your external world, I can only predict 10% of your long-term happiness. 90% of your long-term happiness is predicted not by the external world, but by the way your brain processes the world. And if we change it, if we change our formula for happiness and success, what we can do is change the way that we can then affect reality. What we found is that only 75% of job successes Only 25% of job successes are predicted by IQ. 75% of job successes are predicted by your optimism levels, your social support, and your ability to see stress as a challenge instead of as a threat. I talked to a boarding school up in New England, probably the most prestigious boarding school, and they said, we already know that. So every year, instead of just teaching our students, we also have a wellness week, and we're so excited. Monday night, we have the world's leading expert coming in to speak about adolescent depression. Tuesday night is school violence and bullying. Wednesday night's eating disorders. Thursday night is illicit drug use. And Friday night, we're trying to decide between risky sex or happiness. I said that's most people's Friday nights. Which I'm glad you liked, but they did not like that at all. Silence on the phone. And into the silence, I said, I'd be happy to speak at your school, but just, that's not a wellness week. That's a sickness week. What you've done is you've outlined all the negative things that can happen, but not talked about the positive. The absence of disease is not health. Here's how we get to health. We need to reverse the formula for happiness and success. In the past 3 years, I've traveled to 45 different countries, working with schools and companies in the midst of an economic downturn. And what I found is that most companies and schools follow a formula for success, which is this. If I work harder, I'll be more successful. And if I'm more successful, then I'll be happier. That undergirds most of our parenting styles, our managing styles, the way that we motivate our behavior, and the problem is it's scientifically broken and backwards for two reasons. First, every time your brain has a success, you just change the goalpost of what success looked like. You got good grades, now you have to get better grades. You got into a good school, now you have to get a better school. You got a good job, now you have to get a better job. You hit your sales target, we're going to change your sales target. And if happiness is on the opposite side of success, your brain never gets there. What we've done is we've pushed happiness over the cognitive horizon as a society. And that's because we think we have to be successful, then we'll be happier. But the real problem is our brains work in the opposite order. If you can raise somebody's level of positivity in the present, then their brain experiences what we now call a happiness advantage, which is your brain at positive performs significantly better than it does at negative, neutral, or stressed. Your intelligence rises, your creativity rises, your energy levels rise. In fact, what we found is that every single business outcome improves. Your brain at positive is 31% more productive than your brain at negative, neutral, or stressed. You're 37% better at sales. Doctors are 19% faster, more accurate at coming up with the correct diagnosis when positive instead of negative, neutral, or stressed, which means we can reverse the formula. If we can find a way of becoming positive in the present, then our brains work even more successfully as we're able to work harder, faster, and more intelligently.